The first thing I noticed when I started Star Wars Outlaws on PC was that it defaulted to a 21:9 aspect ratio, black barring the top and the bottom of the screen. Well, actually that's lying. The first thing I noticed was that I couldn't buy it on Steam. I had to buy it on the Epic Game Store, which was kind of annoying. And anyway, but also to play it early to get you guys this video talking about the performance, I had to buy the like $100 version of the game or something like that. So that was a bit annoying too. But anyway, back to the ultra-wide aspect ratio of the game. So this can easily be turned off, but when you do that, actually there's a performance and just your experience playing the game consideration to take into effect. So this game defaults to 21:9 cinematic aspect ratio to simulate, you know, how the Star Wars films looked. They try to do some lens effects to simulate the lenses George Lucas used, all of that. Now, if I turn this off, you'll notice that actually performance gets worse. Notice that the frame rate counter now dipped below 60 FPS, we're at about 58, because now it's having to draw pixels on the top and the bottom. But also, we're actually able to see a lot more of what's going on when we are in the 21:9 aspect ratio. So certainly something to consider. So notice, for example, this box right here, we can see pretty much up to the end of the box. And over here, we can see this railing come all the way down and the stairs go down and even start flattening back out again. Watch this stairway as I switch it back to the fill screen mode to fill a normal 16:9 monitor. You're going to notice that stairway is completely invisible, right? You can't see that far on the edges. And this kind of brownish box thing also kind of completely gone, right? We don't see much of that anymore. So in other words, when you go to that aspect ratio, cinematic aspect ratio, not only does your performance get better, because again, we're hitting here a little below 50 FPS, and if I switch back to the cinematic aspect ratio, again, the developer's default way to play the game, notice the performance actually jumps all the way up to about 70 FPS. So this has a pretty large performance impact. I'll also mention this is a bit different than how it apparently works on console, according to the Digital Foundry tech analysis I saw for the PS5 that released earlier today, where apparently it, on console, when you went to fill screen, it actually did just uncover these bars rather than chop it off on the edges when you went to fill the screen. So I'm not sure which way it's intended to work on PC, but this is certainly how it's working for me. Now, if you're on a native ultra-wide monitor, this game will just run flawlessly for you. Just by default, it's a game actually designed for your ultra-wide monitor for that cinematic look, which is awesome. Let me tell you a little more about ultra-wide monitors. I love ultra-wide monitors, but for a long time they were prohibitively expensive for a lot of people. But the one I'm showing you on screen right now has an MSRP of only $299, and the company who sent it over, KTC, that's their whole mission statement. They want to offer monitors that are the same price as competing offerings, but with better specs, or alternatively offer models with the same specs as the competition, but at a lower price point. Either way, it's a huge win for the consumer. And if you're like, wait, KTC, who are they? Well, they have been manufacturing monitors for companies you probably have heard of, like NEC, Samsung, ViewSonic, longtime partners with them. They have over 6,000 employees, including over 1,000 R&D engineers, and that's how they're able to produce this gaming monitor. Now, the specs at $299 are almost unbelievable. You get 3440 by 1440 at 165 hertz, and yes, it's FreeSync and G-Sync compatible, and it claims 123% sRGB coverage and 98% DCI-P3 and a 4,000:1 contrast ratio. It gets that contrast ratio with the VA panel, but in the past, when I've used VA ultrawide monitors, I actually hated the black smearing and ghosting, but I am not seeing that on this panel. Looks so much better than ones I used in the past that cost like 3 times what this monitor does. And honestly, I'm just really impressed by the experience, and you can get into this ultrawide experience. Now, why would you want that? For productivity, it's easy to see 2 documents side by side, or you could have a video playing easily on one side while still working on a document. It's just really good for productivity. But then when you hop into gaming, racing games, you can feel like you're in the cockpit, especially with that 34-inch 1500R curvature. You really feel like you're in there. In a lot of other types of games, you get the expanded screen space. You can see, I can see more of my city when I'm playing Frostpunk. When I'm playing Baldur's Gate 3, you can just really see what's going on around you. It's a competitive edge in a variety of games, but also just immersive in single-player games. Black Myth Wukong, getting to see all that jungle around me on the sides. It's just a really great experience. So I'm really impressed by what KTC was able to do here at this price point. So please check the link in the video description, and huge thanks for them sponsoring today's video. So let's talk a little bit more about performance in this game. So one thing I'll say is that performance when riding around in kind of the open areas on a speeder bike can vary a lot compared to the more interior areas of the game. And that's just something to keep in mind, especially as certain settings, I think, really do affect that quite considerably. The next thing I want to talk about is, okay, so what kind of performance am I getting here? So right now my graphic settings are on medium. I'm on an RTX 3060 and we're rendering the game at 1080p, although, I'm filling the screen and I was getting around 50 frames per second. If I go into the, cinematic mode, frame rates go up close to 60, but I'm still not quite hitting 60 FPS when riding around on a speeder bike at the medium settings in this game. So, I mean, you can adjust settings even further down to low. Frame rates do go up a bit for sure. So you can see here that we now are over 60 at least a lot of the time. You certainly can dip below it. But another way to try to gain back some performance rather than turning all the way down to the low settings would be to try to use upscaling options. So let's talk a bit about the upscaling options in this game because they actually work a bit different than normal. So first of all, there's a lot of upscalers available. We do have just normal TAA. We have FSR3 available, so you can use frame generation if you don't have a 40 series GPU. However, by the way, it's not... it's not FSR 3.1. For example, if I wanted to use DLSS on my RTX 3060, and watch as my capture card has to switch over to the settings changing here. So if I'm on DLSS, notice on a 30 series card, can't use frame generation. If you're on a 40 series card, DLSS will have frame generation available. So unfortunately, we don't have FSR 3.1 where you could then use FSR frame generation on DLSS upscaling. So if you do want frame generation on a non-40 series card, you will have to use the FSR upscaling pathway. But let's say I'm just upscaling and not using frame generation here. Notice that there's upscaler mode. Now the game actually defaults to the biased setting. And I think we really need to talk about this because I want to show you guys, when I go to like quality level upscaling here, with the biased setting, as it kind of defaults to, I want you to notice that my frame rates didn't jump up as much as you might think. Like, for example, sitting here right now, it looks like we're at about 72 FPS, up to 74. But I want you to notice what happens if we change that setting from biased to fixed. If we change it from biased to fixed, performance numbers I think go up even more. At least they did when I was at 4K resolution. Okay, this is kind of interesting. So I got different results on this when I was on my 4090 playing at 4K resolution. Okay, well, very interesting. I'm gonna switch back on that one. So I will just say that it's looking like maybe at 1080p resolution, this isn't actually making a huge difference here. But I saw that on 4K resolution on my 4090. That setting choice actually had a large performance difference. So interesting. Now, as far as what this says it does, I mean, you can read the tooltip. Most games don't even have this option. It says fixed upscaling is based on a fixed rendering resolution to the native output resolution, which fixed scaling, when fixed scaling is used, is decided by the scaling quality. Which fixed one is, anyway, so I think that's how most games work. Is fixed, but then this game defaults to biased, which says it's upscaling is based on the fixed rendering solution, but in addition, biases it toward a 4K output resolution, which my guess would be to try to make it look even better or something like that. But again, like I said, there can be a big performance difference between these two settings, depending on, apparently on the resolution that you're using. Because like I said, when I was playing this at 4K resolution, I saw a larger performance impact. Let's try going up to 1440p. This would be a good time to test that out anyway, and we can also play around with that setting a bit. So what if you have an RTX 3060 and you're trying to play the game at 1440p? Well, here we are at DLSS biased on the quality setting. Looks like here standing still, we're at about 55 frames per second. Let's go ahead and play with that setting on going to fixed and see if we get a different result. So again, we were at 55 frames per second. Okay, so now see that with fixed, I'm up to 66 frames per second. So it's looking like the higher your rendering resolution is, the better your performance will be by choosing fixed instead of biased, although it probably is also having an impact to image quality. So that's something to keep in mind. Anyway, we're at medium settings DLSS quality, and we do dip below 60 FPS at times, but it's certainly not terrible. And we can also head back into town and kind of see how performance changes there. Generally, I've noticed that in town can certainly perform better, but it also depends on which graphic settings you're at. On the heaviest graphic settings, I think being outside of town has a larger hit to performance because I think a lot of the grass settings and stuff are probably affecting it. Whereas on the medium settings like we're at now, it didn't seem to be quite as big of a performance difference. But you can see the performance does kind of vary quite a bit depending on the location that you're in. It's looking like here, it's actually at medium settings, we're having, looks like a lot of trouble with this scene. I don't know whether it's this like volumetric fog or just all the NPCs here. We shouldn't be CPU limited because we're on a high-end CPU platform here to isolate the GPU performance. So anyway, here we are at 1440p medium settings, DLSS quality. It's certainly playable, but performance does, dip a little bit at times. Now, unfortunately, if we did want to go up to higher graphics settings, the game does get incredibly demanding from here. If we go up to the high graphics settings, even with the DLSS quality enabled, you'll see that we are definitely going to be dropping, into the lower 50s and even the 40s at times for sure. And then we can also go ahead and look at the ultra settings as well real quick. And these are going to be, like I said, even more of a performance hit. So here, definitely dropping into the 30s at times, 40s at times. It definitely depends on what you do. And let's actually go ahead and go outside to the more grassy areas again. If I kind of fast travel back out there while we're talking. And I think you'll see that at these higher graphics settings, the grass has a much bigger effect on overall performance. So you can see that we were kind of in the 40s in town here, but if we ride the speeder bike out of town, performance is going to tank once we get out into the grass. So certainly something to keep in mind. Now, as we transition zones here, I will mention that my, apparently my controller battery is low. Anyway, I will mention that I haven't seen a lot of stuttering in this game. There's definitely some traversal stutter between zones, but I haven't seen a massive amount of stutter. It hasn't been particularly egregious compared to like Unreal Engine games that we see a lot of the time. But yeah, you can see that at the higher graphic settings, this grassy area is a lot more demanding. We're down into the 30s. At the ultra settings, again, DLSS quality. And again, watch whether you're using that fixed or biased. Now, the last thing I'll mention is that the game does offer some additional ray tracing effects. The game always has ray tracing on, just by default. You can't go below ray tracing low on a lot of the settings. Some of them don't even go below medium. So the game always uses ray tracing. It's similar to Avatar Frontiers of Pandora, if you're aware of how that game works. Same graphics engine and developer. However, Nvidia's partnered with them for this game to add in even more ray tracing effects, with RTX Direct Lighting offering a variety of settings going low, medium, high, and ultra. Now, if you try to go to ultra with this thing, you'll see performance just absolutely tank. You can see that the 3060 here at 1440p DLSS quality is an absolute slideshow. So you're going to need a powerful GPU to run that, even if we drop on back to like a 1080p resolution. And remember, we're already cutting off the top and the bottom of the screen. This is just really not going to be settings. Oh no, I reverted settings, guys. This is what I get for filming the video live. Sorry, guys. I started well, my school year started back up. I don't have students until next week, but I'm back to work this week, so I don't have quite as much time to put this video together as I would actually like for editing and whatnot. But anyway, 1080p resolution, even DLSS quality, we're still only at like 20 frames per second. So yeah, it's a bit rough here. So you can try it at some of the lower settings, like low, for example. And again, this is off of the Ultra preset as a baseline, but still here we're kind of hanging out in the below 30 FPS range, and we're upscaling at 1080p with black bars on the top and the bottom. So Yeah, I guess what I'm trying to say here is those NVIDIA ray tracing effects should only be used if you have extremely high-end hardware and want to turn them on. But my kind of overall conclusion on the game is it has some kind of interesting choices. Definitely be mindful of the settings that you're using. But it does have a lot of scalability. We can get it playable on an RTX 3060, although not like at really amazing frame rates or anything like that. Anyway, so that is, I think, what I've got for you guys today. If we want to try out, ultra settings without any of the ray tracing effects, we could take a look at that. So this is ultra settings with DLSS Quality on the RTX 3060 at 1080p if we wanted to take a look at that. So this is, again, even with upscaling, the ultra settings in this game are very demanding, where when I ride around on the speeder bike, we're down into the 30s. So definitely just be mindful of the settings that you're using, but you can certainly play the game on kind of mid-range hardware. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. If you are interested in ultra-wide gaming, don't forget to check out the monitor linked in the video description and or pinned comment. And I hope all of you have an excellent day.